Hello viewers, welcome back to another video on Kumologica. In this video, we will be introducing you to Kumologica Designer and we will be covering different options and features provided by Kumologica Designer. Before opening the designer, as a prerequisite, you need to ensure that you have NPM and AWS CLI installed. In order to verify NPM, you can type in npm-v. You get a version of your npm, and in order to verify your AWS CLI installation, you can type in aws version and you get the location of your AWS CLI installation. This ensures that you have both npm and AWS CLI installed for your Kumologica Designer to function properly. When you open a Kumologica Designer workspace, you will have a default flow which will be part of your workspace. This flow is actually for beginners to understand how a Kumologica flow will look like. Primarily, your designer is categorized into four sections, which is your palette, your canvas, your configuration settings, and your terminal. We will get into deep into each of these sections soon. To start with, we will go with the palette. So nodes are the building blocks for creating your Kumologica flow. So in palette, you can actually have different categories and each of these categories are having a different set of nodes. So you can either search by search the node directly. For example, I want to search for an S3 node. I get S3 node under the AWS category, or I want to search for an SFTP node. I get the SFTP node under the file category. So similarly, you can actually get your nodes from the palette and drag and drop onto your canvas like this. On the palette section, you have one more options, which is add more nodes. So those nodes which are you are seeing on this palette are the core nodes, which are the default nodes which are part of your designer. So there are certain set of nodes which will not be part of your default set of nodes on the palette categories, and for those nodes you might need to get into add more nodes. And in add more nodes, you can actually select the node which you are interested in and you can install it directly into your workspace. Coming to the canvas is the workspace where you actually draw your Kumologica flow. So you construct your nodes and you wire them together to build your use case. Now, in order to configure a particular node, for instance, in this case, I'm actually trying to search for an event listener node, which is the starting node in any flow. And let's say I want to configure the event listener node. I can select the event source from here. Let's say in this case, I select the API gateway. I can configure the verb, URL, etc. and save it. So this is the settings section, and settings section you also have nodes tab where you can actually provide the notes about what this particular flow is all about, or what does this particular node actually takes care of. For each node, when you click on each of these nodes, you will have a description, properties, and few response and message structure related details showcased as part of Quick Help. Now, all the nodes are having these details, and you can refer these details when you are actually configuring your nodes using the settings configuration. On this section, you have info, test, and cloud tab. We will get into the test tab later on in a different video, but at a high level, test tab is the one feature which is used in Kumologica Designer to execute a flow locally. So you can see here there is two buttons over here. One is a main and another one is a test. So whatever the canvas that you are seeing is on the main button. Now when you click test, it shows a default test case that is created for that flow. So we will be having a different video where we will be mentioning about how to create the test case and how to use the assertions in your test case flow. So whenever you are creating a test case, you have that listed over here. So you can create multiple test case flow and run them together on a single stretch. Now we have a cloud tab. Now the cloud tab is actually the section which is actually responsible for deploying your Kumologica flow into AWS Lambda. So in this case, your target is AWS Lambda, and what we are the configuration that we are providing on this tab will be completely related to AWS Lambda. So we need to select the AWS profile that we need to use for making the deployment, and we need to ensure that the profile is having enough permissions for your Lambda to get deploy and execute. So primarily it's the Lambda execution role. On the right to this deploy button, you have a option where you can export your flow to deploy using serverless or using AWS CloudFormation. So this is primarily used when you want to actually make your deployments through CI/CD pipeline. You use these frameworks to make the deployment. So currently we support AWS CloudFormation and serverless. So if you see here, if I select the serverless, it generates the serverless script for you, which you can configure on any CI/CD setup that you are having. And under the profile, you have a function section which consists of the name of the function, description, your memory configuration. So these are primarily the Lambda configuration that we used to provide so that you can run it on your own AWS account or AWS Lambda account. So you have your more parameters section where you can configure your concurrency, or you want to enable X-ray for your Lambda, you can enable it over here. Then you have primarily another section which is the trigger section. Now this is a very important section when you actually make a deployment of your Kumologica flow into AWS Lambda. So this trigger is the starting point or the invocation point for your Kumologica flow. Now this depends upon what kind of trigger that you have configured on event listener. For instance, here you have event source as Amazon API gateway. So you have your trigger given as Amazon API gateway, and based on your selection of your trigger, your nature of parameters that shows here, it differs. For instance, here in API gateway, uh, you can see here the list of API gateway instances associated with my account. So either you can create a new API by selecting create new API, or you can select the appropriate already existing instance for your Lambda to get attached. So whenever you are making the deployment, you are not doing anything for attaching your Lambda into API gateway. Kumologica takes care of all those parts because it generates a cloud formation behind the scene to attach your Lambda to your API gateway. So once you have configured your triggers, you can make a deployment by clicking on deploy button over here. The moment you click deploy, you can see the logs started showing up over here, which includes your Lambda building and deploying onto your account, stuffs like that. Then here in terminal you have another tab called remote. Now this remote tab is actually a tab which helps you in fetching the logs for the Lambda which is deployed onto the AWS account from your designer. So this is more or less a real-time live log which fetches the data from your CloudWatch, where your logs actually dump from your Lambda, and you can see that directly from here rather than getting inside your AWS console CloudWatch to view your logs. You can create a new project by clicking on home button over here, or you can open an existing project by clicking open an existing project option over here. So one of the key option which Kumologica gives is to import an existing flow into your workspace. For instance, when you create a new project, you have two options. One is to select an empty project, which is like you are creating from scratch. The second one is an option for copy pasting your existing Kumologica flow, which is actually a JSON file, which you can copy paste it over here and click on create. It will import your flow into the workspace that you have opened. You can search your nodes or flow within this canvas using the search feature over here. For instance, I want to search for event listener. I can type it over here, and you can see that the event listener options, event listener nodes that are available in my canvas. With this, we are completing our video and hope you have enjoyed it. Please share your feedback and comments on the comment section of this video link, and don't forget to subscribe to our channel. Thank you.